Sila tekan butang ini untuk sari kata.
KP4. He's the one who sticks a ruler into the ballot box to press the ballot papers down. Chopping, 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 chopping. 12 hours a day, chopping and poking and chopping and poking. And on election day, he will be there with his 12-inch ruler to poke your ballot into the ballot box.
Hi there, this is PY Wong from Pendidikan, Malaysia. Now we will talk about the components of the election cost. This consists of three parts. 1. Overall election cost. 2. Cost of KP4. And 3. Cost of indelible ink. Now let's look at KP4, Kerani Pengundian number 4. This clerk, the function is only to hold a ruler to push it down a ballot box. Do you know how much is paid just to serve the SPR during polling day? More than 250 ringgit. And we do not know what is the final figure because the EC has said we have increased the allowance for the EC staff. But even taking at 250 ringgit, there are 25 to 30,000 of them. That works out to an extra 7 million ringgit for a clerk who does nothing other than holding a ruler and pushing it into the ballot box. Don't you think this is outrageous? How can we stand for this? They may argue this clerk is also involved in directing the voters on where to place the ballot paper. But that leads us to another question. Why are we having KP2 especially doing nothing other than applying indelible ink? In many countries around the world, indelible ink is applied after voting. All you need is 2 bottles after the ballot box where the KP4 will direct the voters to dip their finger for 1 minute. That way, we reduce the danger of delay during the electoral process. This time round, we are asked to have the indelible ink before voting. This is very dangerous, especially since this is the first time. So we are being asked to pay extra money for a process that can create a lot of delay for us. It doesn't make sense. Now let's look at the election budget for GE13. Initially, the budget was 40 million ringgit. Then there was a supplementary budget for 360 million ringgit, plus a security budget for 300 million ringgit, bringing it to a total of 700 million ringgit. What is the significance of this? In GE12, the EC reported an election expenditure of RM 171.8 million. For GE13, the EC has asked for a budget of 700 million ringgit, an increase of more than 300%. But increase in voters is only 25%. How do we justify this? Are the figures reasonable? Does it make sense? Let's look at costs at other countries. Let's look at the election cost per voter in US dollar for a stable democracy. The lowest cost is in Pakistan at 50 cents. The highest is in Australia at $3.20. Now remember, Australia is a continent-sized country. It has huge distances to cover. It has overseas voters. It has postal voters, and yet the cost is only $3.20. Let's look at post-conflict countries. We look at higher cost areas. I'm sure you know about Palestine. It is in a very difficult situation because of the treatment and suppression by Israel. And yet their cost is $9 US per voter. Then we look at countries with serious conflict, civil war, Angola, Afghanistan. Their cost was about $20 to $22 US per voter. Where does Malaysia stand? Our cost is $17 US per voter. What is the EC planning? Are they planning for war? Because the costs reflect the cost of a war-torn country. We are supposed to be a very stable country, having the same government for the past 55 years. Why are we budgeting for $17 US per voter? Don't you think this is extremely high? Let's look with another example familiar to us, Afghanistan. Their election cost per voter is $20 US. Our election cost is $17 for the coming elections. Isn't this strange to have our costs so similar to a war-torn country? We should be comparing our costs with a stable country like Australia. Oh, some of you may argue, what about inflation? Yes, inflation. Would inflation over 8 years increase your election cost by more than 5 times from $3.20 to $17? Surely that doesn't make sense. And after all, in Malaysia, our government claimed that our inflation is very stable. Every year it is 3%. If you take 3% over 5 years, it is only 15% and at the most 20%, not 500%. Can you imagine what is 700 million ringgit to run a general election? Assume a low-cost house costs 70,000 ringgit. That's enough to buy 10,000 low-cost houses. That's enough to give 3 low-cost houses for the whole kampong. From our research, each bottle of indelible ink will cost between $10 US to $25 US. Let's start with the highest range of the bottle price, $25 US. One bottle can handle between 800 to 1,000 voters. Each saluran has only 700 voters, which means one bottle is enough for one saluran. Let's double the number. 2 bottles per saluran. That's $50 US per saluran. We have 25,000 saluran throughout the country. That's $1.25 million US, which is less than RM4 million ringgit. But the deputy chairman at the NIEI forum last October claimed that the indelible ink will cost RM10 million. How do we justify an increase of cost of 2.5 times compared with what we would expect? Compared with the price in 2008, it was only 2.3 million ringgit for 10.9 million voters. This time around, we are having 13.3 million voters, an increase of only 25%. Do we justify an increase from 2.3 million to 10 million, which is more than 400%? This doesn't make sense to us. During the last general elections, we were promised indelible ink. They spent 2.3 million to procure the ink. They kept it there, and just 4 days before the election, they cancelled the indelible ink. Are they going to pull this stunt on us this time around? We are not sure. Because all this while, we hear of this holding back, and holding back. This is a very worrisome development. I urge you as a voter, ask the SPR this question. Why are we spending this money?